Okay. Hello, welcome to our session. This is called Spotlighting Success, Cultivate a Positive School Climate and Culture. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Maria Bertoncini, and I'm an English language development specialist at the School District of Lancaster, specifically Wickersham Elementary School, where I've been a teacher for the past 16 years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nate Miller. I'm the Dean of Students at Wickersham Elementary School alongside Maria. I've been serving as our dean here for 3 years now, and prior to that was a fourth grade teacher for about 8 years before taking over as the dean. So, like we said, we're located at Wickersham Elementary School within the School District of Lancaster. We're a pre-K through grade 5 school. We have two inclusive AS classrooms. We have approximately 420 students. We have a very diverse population with over 12, or I shouldn't say over, with 12 different languages represented as first languages within students and their families. This is our third year implementing Ruler, and this is our second year serving as a Spotlight school. So we bring everybody together today with the purpose of taking the approach that we've had with Ruler and integrating it into our everyday systems that we've had established here at Wickersham and just that successful piece from there. So we want to really identify and elaborate that and emphasize that this is an approach and it's not so much taking place of what you've done before, whereas it's implementing it into the systems that you've already seen success with so that it's continuing that drive and success for everybody involved.
Mm-hmm. So the first instance that we really realized that this was enhancing our school culture was when we used a second grade classroom for the pilot group. Our pilot group was 2023, 2024 school year, and it was the first time that we really stopped to recognize how the ruler approach was enhancing our existing systems. As the dean, you had more of a behind the scenes look at how this was affecting behavior and how, as the students were gaining skills, they were improving in ways that we didn't expect initially. So how did the mood meter specifically or our ruler lessons help you to navigate some of the tougher situations?
So having that language established across the entire building really helped with students be able to identifying how they're feeling in conversations and specifically restorative practices with students that they may have had an incident with. We utilize the blueprint immensely. Anytime that we have students that had an incident or even staff that had a disagreement with each other, we'll utilize that blueprint to kind of navigate that restorative conversation between all parties involved. And the mood meter specifically has been great because we'll create those individualized mood meters and it helps us or helps the students identify who they are as their best selves. The one big celebration that really was eye-opening to us as a school when you break down the data is that the number of students that are considered repeat offenders decreased immensely year to year as ruler as we continue this approach with what we're doing here at Wickersham in utilizing ruler.
In regards to our regulation and co-regulation with the students, and especially being a language teacher, I really noticed that first year that common nuanced vocabulary helped us to get to the root of some of the behaviors instead of this blanketed statement, I'm mad or I'm happy, and really help them to eventually finding their best self through that nuanced and common vocabulary.
Yeah,
And having
absolutely.
those routines in place too, I think really helped, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The routines are important because it established that the expectations for students across the board. We really integrated ruler specifically within PBIS. For those of you that aren't familiar with PBIS, that's just another program where it really focuses on the positive behavior of students and celebrating and recognizing those positive behaviors with students and being in a preventative approach. So making sure that students understand the expectations in a given setting and what their behavior should look like, and then recognizing them for that. So being able to integrate ruler into there, we now took the expectations that we have at our school and connected a feeling and those regulation strategies to those expectations in every setting of the school, which has really helped students with the ability to restore with each other, whether it be themselves or with their teacher or where whatever the setting is.
I noticed that also when they were participating in the mood meter daily, they were also building empathy with each other,
Mhm.
which really helped with really minor conflict resolution. So I'm sure that it had to have helped with some of the things that you were seeing from the dean's office that maybe wasn't privy to, but in the morning you could see that they were getting to know each other, um, connecting more through how they were feeling in
Mhm.
this new way.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said before, we're pre-K through grade 5. So especially with our intermediate students, they're able to, there's oftentimes when we have these incidents, like this foundation has been built around being able to identify how we feel and being able to understand multiple people's perspectives and acknowledge that because I felt blank in a scenario, you may have felt different, and then being able to talk out that situation. And a lot of time with the intermediate students, they'll have that restorative conversation with each other without even necessarily needing an adult to guide them, which is a
Mhm.
huge step for students who are 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. Um, from the younger student's perspective, all right, that would be the same situation where students are learning that empathy and being able to have that conversation with each other because they're recognizing that they're one part of the situation that took place,
Right.
and then being able to identify their best self and utilize their best self to regulate their own emotions in relation to whatever the situation may be.
Right. And identifying emotions in their friends, like
Mhm.
accepting that emotions are social, that we can notice how somebody else is feeling. And I also noticed that it helped relieve some of the stigma if a child that was always coming in maybe in the red or always in the
Mhm.
blue, when we're all collectively identifying where we are and where we want to move or what's going to serve us in that moment, I think it helped some of the students that may have felt that stigma previously to relax into it and understand that all of these emotions matter through that
Right.
daily use.
And
Mhm.
one thing that we'll talk to students that may be coming in there, and you'll hear students, I don't want my class to see me feeling this way. Well, embarrassment is a feeling, and students are able to identify that they're feeling embarrassed, and being able to voice that to their teacher has
Mhm.
gained a ton of success in the sense of, okay, now I'm going to help you do this because I know exactly how you're feeling. Like it's not so much I'm angry or mad or sad. I know that you feel embarrassed about this situation. So now I can help you with actually entering the classroom, and we can work alongside each other within a community that has that empathy.
Yes. Mhm. And not to mention, it helps us to regulate and co-regulate together as adults because we now, as a building, have this common
Mhm.
language and can help each other and help ourselves get to that place.
Yeah, and through that nuanced language, it's established an area where like it becomes a more judgment free and
Mhm.
understanding. We all experience these emotions, and we start every meeting with these emotions and identifying and checking in. Like it helps to show that it's okay to feel that way. And now
Mhm.
let's figure out how we can regulate to be our best selves again.
And we do have these ways that we're identifying and celebrating as a building among the adults with some things that, like the ruler rock stars
Mhm.
and charter champions.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, it feels good to be recognized for doing well, especially as adults. I mean, we're with students all day long, and we all know if you're in this profession that there are days it's tough, and being able to be recognized for that ability to stay regulated, stay grounded, stay your best self for your students, like that feels good, and you deserve to be recognized for that.
For sure.
So moving into the academic piece, we know that we know that ruler the approach has a lot to do with behavior, and we've used that to regulate and help ourselves and help our students be their best selves every day. But as far as academic, we wanted to really find ways to implement the approach into direct academic conferencing, literacy, modeling with students. So one thing that we really focused on was that ELA piece. And
Mhm.
during student conferencing and having students identify the way they're feeling about maybe what the character felt in the story, utilizing ruler words and ruler language to help them understand how characters grow throughout a fictional text or even a nonfiction text, but also through goal setting for themselves. So part of our ELA curriculum, as you know, is conferencing with students and setting what we call power goals for the students to work on. And through that goal setting, now attaching those emotions to it has been, it's making students or making students be able to use their voice to their teacher. Like, I may feel worried about this, or I'm stressed out about this because of X, Y, and Z. So it's attaching that ability to just be able to explain how they're feeling about a goal that they're having rather than seeing like a shutdown because that feeling of I can't do it, so I'm not going to do it.
Mhm. And then with the introduction of strategies and children being able to regulate or co-regulate with us, we're seeing an increase in attention on task,
Hmm.
problem solving skills because of the just ability to think clearly, to feel safe in a given situation. And then, like you said, ultimately that self goal setting, that intrinsic motivation that we're always looking for.
Hmm.
So, mhm.
Yeah, and that's natural in the sense that we have because students and our staff are learning those strategies to regulate themselves. It's the focus is the academic when you're in that classroom setting because you're not necessarily worried about the emotional piece because you are able to stay regulated. So as an ELD teacher, and I know that with our diverse population, like where have you seen the shift and like benefit and success of Ruler and what we've been doing with Ruler within your students?
Well, we know that our families coming from every corner of the world are coming with different cultural norms. And I think the most powerful thing is when we come into a classroom and we have this common language and these common routines around social emotional learning, it sort of takes away that idea that this isn't how I do it. This is how we do it as a building. And
Hmm.
this is how we do it as a class so that it doesn't go against, it only enhances where everyone's coming from. It brings this common ground and ways to talk about emotions. And then when we put it into literature, it's not so personal. We can look at the characters in the book and see where they are, what are the strategies they could use when they're need to get to their best self. So it's not this intense look at the individual person, but how can we look at that in our characters and then apply it to ourselves? So
Right.
that's been powerful also to
And
use
have
it
you
throughout the
seen,
day.
like, when you look at like the academic data points, have you seen like consistent growth among our ELD students, especially like with Ruler versus when before we were actually implementing this?
Yeah, over the past 3 years, we've had the highest growth with throughout the ELD department in our district. So there's 13 elementary schools and we've successfully increased that. There's many reasons, but I do believe that that piece that we are helping the social emotional component of their day so much more. In ELD, we talk about an effective filter. So it's like a drawbridge. And when the drawbridge is down, information can come in. We understand that about
Mhm.
language acquisition. And I do think that these safer environments and these abilities to speak to their emotions and receive strategies daily, I think that we are seeing an increase in language acquisition for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I like just the experience I have of working with our ELD students, especially from a social emotional perspective as the dean. Like I see the language versus now versus when I was still teaching prior to having these lessons. Like I noticed significant growth in the variety of words that the students are using. It's all
Right.
grades, like even our youngest students.
I agree. I agree. And also, there's fewer interruptions when our behaviors, our
Mhm.
desirable behaviors are increasing, and then that's helping the entire class learn more when
Right.
there's less interruptions, I think.
Right, for sure. And there's that feeling of being proud of yourself. Like
Hmm.
I noticed a lot recently over the past year or two, like one word that students constantly use is proud, which is, I mean, that's like heartwarming to hear.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So moving into attendance, and I know that there is a wide variety of reasons attendance or students may have struggles with attendance. There's many different factors, some that are within the school's control, some that are without of the school's control, some that the families can't even necessarily control. So I'm not putting blame on anybody here, but we have seen an increase in our attendance rate across the board over the past 3 years, or yeah, 3 years since we began implementing this, and it's almost 4% increase, which is a huge amount of growth over three years. And I believe that there are components of Ruler that really led to this. I also need to apologize to everybody. This slide is bothering me a lot with the E in attendance down below. But it's all right. So I'm feeling a little embarrassed by that.
I
So,
agree. And I think even
Maria,
as a staff, yeah, that we want to be somewhere that feels safe, feels regulated,
mhm.
feels judgment free.
Right. So I don't spend a ton of time in classrooms consistently with morning meetings. I like as a dean, I try to visit different spaces, but you're in a second grade classroom daily and have been since the beginning of implementation of this. So where have you seen the ruler approach really helping our students grow in their attendance?
I think that routine of coming in every morning, that's the expectation is to come and plot. And
Hmm.
the plot, as we know, is not the permanent emotion of the day. So the students have a chance to move their, in this case, in the picture shown here, they're magnets and they just move around the board, their number, their personal numbers on it. And so it's not as, we eliminated the names to eliminate any stigma around it. If somebody wants to come in and be
Sure.
read, maybe their friend notices that they put it there, but it's not something that they have to own the rest of the day or until they choose to move it. So I think that the things that we have in place, specifically coming in and having that a part of the morning meeting is something that they look forward to. I think they look forward to all of the ruler lessons and the routines of knowing that when there is a conflict, we have things in place and that there's trusted adults to help us come back to our charter, to come back to our blueprint, to help us find our best selves over and over.
And when the students are checking in, is this during like their morning meeting circle or is this as they're entering the room?
As they're
Or
entering
both?
the room. As they
As they're entering
enter
the room.
the room, they plot. That's the first thing they do. They come in, maybe put their things away, and then come plot. And we speak regularly about how that feels in your body, or if there's anything we can do to change, what strategies are you thinking could help you in this moment. And we try to give them enough in their toolbox so that if we say, do you want to take some deep breaths together? And then you can tell right away, like, no, that's not going to work. Maybe it's too far in the red that that's not it today. Or sort of like gauging it and seeing what can be preventative and what could maybe be blowing off some steam outside of the room. Or um, luckily, we do have that wonderful space where you work from that they do know that they're allowed to go to blow
Yep.
off steam if they need to or to be celebrated. It's not a punitive space at all.
Mhm.
And it's really for regulation. And someone said in morning meeting the other day, like, when I feel this way in my body, could you do? And someone actually said, I guess I could tell Mr. Miller and see if I could go in there for a little bit. So the kids are used to those
Yep.
connections now of feeling the things in their body and noticing what quadrant that's going to put them in and if that's going to be able to serve them. So
Right. And I
Pretty
think that
cool.
it adds, like we spoke earlier about empathy. And if they see that a classmate of theirs that, I mean, at the end of the day, you spend so much time together as a class. Like I always used to say as a teacher, like we are a family, whether you want to be or not. You're together for 7 hours a day and you're like siblings. So we need to actually be there for each other. And I think it does increase that empathy as far as seeing if one of my classmates is feeling unpleasant and what can I do to help them out?
Mhm. And I do work with mostly second graders. And I had mentioned
Mhm.
to you earlier, there's just really something about that age that they really grasp it. And now these
Right.
second graders are coming in with 2 years or
Mhm.
1 year actually. They had it in first grade, some introduction to the mood meter when they were in kindergarten.
Yep.
And I was just really busy in doing my beginning of the year testing. And I had a group, and right away they're like, Miss B, do you want to check in? And it's kind of
Mhm.
like, Coach, where are you feeling? Do you feel like this is
Yep.
so it's really catching on even when it's not prompted, which is really
Yeah.
cool.
For sure. I think the other thing that really helps with the attendance is those home connections piece. And we're going to touch on
Mhm.
this in the following slide here with family engagement, but I think just that building that language and that understanding of regulation between all of our students within the classroom setting, but also with the school setting, the school community, our families. So bringing all of that together, I think is also important and really impacted our attendance as well.
Okay, so this year we are focusing more on family engagement, and we have some new initiatives in place, but family engagement has been part of this process since our pilot year. And one of the really cool things was how much our second grade families that first year loved the home connections that we would send home as part of the ruler program. And whatever word we were working on during that full implementation, they would, as you all probably know, the ruler curriculum has really great prompts and ways for families to share. And it really supports, I think, all of our work as being culturally responsive and again, building empathy. A lot of students were really interested in how someone else's parent answered it or how somebody else's
Mhm.
sibling answered it, and even would reference it back like, oh, I remember so and so's brother said that really frustrated him too. And
Mhm.
they are constantly making those connections through sharing. So we're not only bridging what we're doing here with what we're doing at home and inviting them
Right.
into that process, but it's helping us meet families where they are to share where they are. And like you said, we have a lot of different cultures coming together. So everyone
Mhm.
gets to hear that family's priorities if they're
Yeah.
willing to share.
And a highlight with that specific group, so they were the pilot year. So they have had this for this is now the third full implementation year that they've experienced this. But at dismissal, like we're a community school, so a lot of our families walk. When you see the parents outside, you can see and almost feel the connection with that group specifically because of the impact this has had on them. And like
Mhm.
the ability to have those conversations and just knowing some of the families, like they'll speak to celebrating. Like we really like that we had this platform to have these conversations with each other, and it helps me as a parent, or it helps me as a husband or a wife to, or a partner to understand how somebody else in my house is feeling.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So with that, this led to us wanting to create a wellness night. And we didn't want to call this a ruler night, even though ruler was the overarching reason that we wanted to bring this together. But it's a wellness night because it has a lot more of an impact and a lot more of community partners where it's not solely ruler. So we brought in a bunch of community partners. You can see there we had yoga for students and families to partake in. It We brought in therapists, like school-based therapists. We brought outside therapists, and we had hands-on activities for the students. And we did this last year for the first time, and we saw a pretty good turnout. It exceeded the expectations that we had, especially being that it was January and it was a very, very cold evening that night. But we had a lot of families come out, and we're excited to do this again this year, which we're going to kind of um, partnered up with our parent teacher conferences. So we're doing it a week before so that we can touch base again with the families and follow up and be able to answer any questions that they have.
I
So is there
do.
anything that you want to speak to with that, Maria?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking we did it last year in January. This year, we're going to do this in November. And I think
Mhm.
that having that opportunity to have a chance to do the family charter with you was a really great addition to that. Students
Mhm.
and families were able to do that together. And it seemed to be really powerful, and especially for the returning families that had had a full year. Our third graders last year, they had more vocabulary down, more of the ins and outs. They've heard about the charter already, so they um, were more engaged, I think. So this year, I'm excited to see where that takes us.
Yeah, for sure. And we had with the charter and the family charters that we made. So like the students were familiar with their classroom charters, and then our staff has our staff charter. But the family charter was important because it's they're the people that you live with. And one thing that we did was there was a family that was working through it, and they all identified the ways that they wanted to feel. And it was awesome to see. But then they got to a point with it where after identifying those feelings, like in a situation that we disagree with each other, how are we going to treat it? Well, in that moment, they disagreed with each other and couldn't figure it out and started arguing with each other. And they turned to me and I said, return back to your charter. Like, what do you want to feel? You're validating each other's concerns, and this is why we're doing this.
Right.
So after laughing it off and seeing that almost the irony of it, they came to an agreement with it, and actually a few weeks later, the parents came to pick up the student, and they said to me outside at dismissal, like, we went back to that charter because we were disagreeing about something, and our student, I'm so badly want to say who it is because I know she's going to hear this, but I'm not going to say that. But our student, she's the one that directed them back to the charter. So
Mhm.
we had a young child getting their parents to go back to the charter, which helped solve that problem that they had in that scenario, and then we're able to talk through it. So it
Yeah.
is really cool, and it was really beneficial um, to have that opportunity for families, and a lot of them spoke very highly of being able to take that home with them.
Mhm.
So from a family engagement perspective and all the work that we're doing around family engagement, Maria, how would you say that this supports our ability to be our best selves?
I think it just goes back to that quote, the strongest nervous system in the room wins. And we acknowledge this idea that as adults, when our nervous system is hijacked, we can't help our kids regulate. We can't
Mhm.
help our own children. We can't help our students or each other.
Right.
And we just want to normalize learning and practicing and growing together. And really learning how to mend together as well. Like we're going to make mistakes. We're going to come at this from different starting points. We're going to approach this from different angles and different quadrants
Mhm.
every single day. So
Yep.
accepting that it's going to look different for everyone and that we're in it together. We're here to practice. We're here to grow. We're developing these skills, and also as educators, placing value on individual family priorities.
Mhm.
Like we talked about before, it's so important that when we're coming into this place, different cultures, different families, different priorities, that we can use our common language and tools and know where we want to go without at the same time respecting where every single family is coming from.
Right.
And I think that's my biggest, or our biggest as a building, our biggest goal for all these
Right.
efforts. Mhm. Is
Right.
for
And
people to
building
feel supported. Yeah. Mhm.
right. And building on that, when I think of regulation, I almost separate it as myself as a professional and as a dad, which I wish I didn't because I, as a parent, I probably make more mistakes with that regulation than I do as a professional. But I always go back to being my best self. And when I think of like my own personalized mood meter that I've made with students or that I've made with my children at home, like that idea of visualizing that when I'm in a space where I'm not going to be a test, or I'm not going to respond in a way that I need to in order to help the child be successful. Like that, that has really helped me with navigating life as a dean in high stress situations, but also life at home as a parent. And I realized, like just last night, for example, I made a mistake and I escalated my own child at bedtime because of myself being overly tired, which then I quickly jumped from the blue zone to the red zone because of just my frustration of bedtime. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have toddlers, which we know how bedtime can go. but I think it is really important to just understanding how you specifically can regulate. So I think it's a very individualized and um, very personalized strategies, I guess I would say. But
Hmm.
like, because what works for me may not work for you. And I know what works for us as adults isn't necessarily going to work for children that we serve in school or children that we raise at home.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And I think that's where that communication and
Hmm.
continuing to talk through that, like we said, it's being developed and emotions are social. I like to go back to that ruler principle as well, that I need to understand how my feelings or my actions affected everyone else. And I need to look, and it's also teaching our kids, like dad looks like he's in the red.
Yep. Yeah.
We ultimately are responsible, but we are teaching those skills as well to see how someone else is feeling and try to adjust
Yeah.
that way too.
And we know that our students and our kids, especially our little ones, like they're looking at us for guidance and they're going to mimic and mirror how we're handling situations. So
Hmm.
if we want them to be able to regulate, we need to be able to ground ourselves and regulate ourselves.
Hmm.
So from all this, um, what do you think the most important thing is we wanted to share or get across through our family engagement efforts?
I think just right back to those three principles: emotions matter, they're social, and we're working on it. They're being developed. So they're the three things.
So this is more of a logistical slide here, and it just talks about our implementation timeline. But we wanted to show this because it's not something that's going to be integrated overnight. So if we go back to 2014 and 2015, which was about 10 years ago, this is when we first started implementing PBIS, and we really wanted to establish those positive behavior and expectations. We earned our fidelity the following year in Tier 1, which was recognized by Pennsylvania's PBIS, Positive Behavior Support. And then in 2017 and 2018, we took on restorative practices and really utilized that in conjunction with PBIS to help students and help staff with navigating incidents and really getting our students back into the classroom to be the best that they could be. So then in 2022, 2023, our district decided to move into utilizing Ruler, and it was a slow rollout, which I think really benefited us, especially coming off the pandemic, and really or making sure that staff understood what Ruler was and the benefits that we had of it. So we were staff only in 22, 23, but we also had our second grade pilot group doing it that time, which was huge for our school to understand Ruler as a whole and really get the buy-in. But from Maria and my perspective specifically, like we learned a ton from this because we were heavily involved in that implementation. And then last school year, we had partial implementation, which was school wide. So it was 2 to 3 days a week. We implemented ruler lessons in the curriculum within morning meeting. And then this year, we moved into full implementation where the ruler curriculum is being implemented daily with our students. At the start of every single day during morning meeting and our circles. And you can see within just a month, the I don't want to say the summer slide, but the students are back to understanding who they are emotionally and how we're going to utilize that moving forward. So, like I said, this is just a timeline that worked for us, but it just shows that like all of this can come together as one rather than it being its own separate programming. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Maria?
Um, no, not necessarily, just that
Okay,
it can be done. It doesn't feel overwhelming when you take what's already working.
right.
And I think that helped us with the most and the buy-in with the building and the
Mhm.
most teachers on board, because we know that it's hard to implement completely new things, but as we enhance what was working, it really helped the teachers get on board, or the
Yeah,
staff, the whole staff.
right. And
Mhm.
it was a good, like, the beginning of our ruler up and implementation was a really good time to reflect as a building and our systems that we have here, just to make sure that, okay, so this is working. We need to keep this, and let's infuse ruler into this piece, or this is something that we need to reevaluate. Okay, how can we re or how can we recreate this system with ruler and bringing in restorative practices and PBIS as well? So, oh my goodness, this slide and the resources slide is going to bother me on this one too. Um, so at the end of this, we really appreciate everybody joining us for this time. We are willing to share anything that we have, anything that we talked about. Feel free to contact us. Maria and I will both actually be at the implementation conference. So if you wanted to touch base with us in person, we'd be happy to do so as well. Some of the resources that we'll give alongside this presentation would be this a staff charter example, the one that we created here at Wickersham, mood meter vocabulary cards, the mood meter templates for students to navigate, our restorative conversation blueprint. So we took the blueprint and actually kind of revamped it to integrate restorative practices and our PBIS expectations in here. So it's one unified system for our students. Our ruler rockstar acknowledgement that we do here for staff and students, any of our wellness night um, resources that we use, and then just the complementary literature that we integrated within our lessons as well. So thanks, everybody. We hope you enjoy the conference. Have a good
Thank
one.
you. Thank you so much. Bye.